Have you ever stopped to think about how your point of view isn't just a point of view, but the very tool that shapes your reality? Well, today we're diving into an incredible ancient text, the Vipassanākathā. It makes a pretty radical claim that the path to real freedom isn't found out there somewhere, but it's forged moment by the way we choose to see the world.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with this fundamental choice between two different ways of seeing things. Then, we'll explore why one of them is a total dead end and how the other one is the key to liberation. We're going to unpack 40 specific ways of looking at things, see how this simple shift can turn suffering into freedom, and then we'll wrap it all up and see what it means for you, right here, right now.
You know, the entire discourse really hangs on one simple but incredibly powerful idea. It basically presents us with a fork in the road, two fundamental ways to perceive our own experience. One view, the text tells us, makes any real progress totally impossible. The other, though, well, it makes liberation not just possible, but practically inevitable. And the text builds this idea using a really cool rhetorical device. Over and over again, you get this sharp contrast between what is impossible, natam tanam vijjati, and what is possible, tanam etam vijjati. And trust me, this isn't just some fancy turn of phrase. It's the very engine that drives the entire teaching. It sets up a crystal clear choice. One way is a brick wall, the other is an open door. So, let's first take a walk down the path the text calls the path to nowhere. This is all about the mindset, the particular way of seeing things, that completely blocks any real movement toward clarity and freedom. Okay, so the first major roadblock? It's seeing anything that arises from causes and conditions, a thought, an emotion, even your own body, as nika, or permanent. If we trick ourselves into believing that these things are stable and will last forever, the text says it is impossible to develop the kind of patience you need to even begin the journey. But the moment we start to see these very same things as anicca, or impermanent, something shifts, a door cracks open, it becomes possible. The next dead end is seeing this ever-changing reality as sukha, as truly pleasant and deeply satisfying. You know the drill. We chase after fleeting pleasures, thinking they'll give us lasting happiness, but it's a path to nowhere. It's only when we can honestly acknowledge the inherent dukkha, that stress, that friction, that unsatisfying feeling of trying to hold on to water, that real progress becomes possible.
And the third big one, the final block, is seeing phenomena as atta, as a solid, separate, unchanging self. When we cling to this idea of a permanent me at the center of everything, liberation is just impossible. But when we start to see all things as anatta, or not self, as these flowing, interconnected processes without a fixed core, well, that's when the path of freedom really opens up.
All right, so now that we've seen what slams the door shut, let's flip the script and focus on the mindset that unlocks everything. This is the perspective that actually lets someone step onto the path of liberation. See, this shift in perspective, from permanent, pleasant, and self to impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self, it isn't just some intellectual exercise. It's the literal key that unlocks something called analomikam khantim. Think of it as a kind of deep, receptive patience. It's an acceptance of reality just as it is. And with that foundational patience, a person can finally step onto sammata niyamam, the right path that leads all the way to awakening.
Now, here's where things get really fascinating. The text doesn't just stop at these three big ideas. Nope. It gets incredibly practical, offering 40 specific lenses for us to investigate our own experience, what are known as the 5 aggregates. That's just the raw stuff of our existence: body, feelings, perceptions, mental habits, and consciousness.
40 different ways to cultivate this right view. That's not a random number. It's a comprehensive toolkit for insight. It shows us that this isn't a one-and-done deal, but a rich, multifaceted investigation of our reality from every conceivable angle. Let's look at just a few of the really powerful ones.
One of the most striking contemplations in the text encourages us to view our own mind and body, the 5 aggregates, rogato, as a disease. Now, I know that sounds a bit morbid, but it's actually a really skillful way to cut through our tendency to cling to our existence as if it's this perfectly healthy, stable thing.
Another incredibly vivid metaphor is salato, seeing our experience as being pierced by an arrow. Every moment we cling, every time we get caught up and identify with a passing thought or feeling, it's like we're being struck by a dart. This really highlights the sharp, painful quality of our normal, unexamined life.
And this one might be one of the most potent, bayato, seeing the aggregates as danger. Why danger?
Well, because anything that's constantly changing and ultimately outside of our control is by its very nature unreliable. It's a source of fear. And by looking right at this danger, we stop trying to find safety where it can never truly be found.
Okay, so you might be listening to this and thinking, wow, disease, arrows, danger. This all sounds incredibly negative. How on earth does focusing on all these downer aspects lead to a positive outcome like freedom? Well, the text lays out a brilliant mechanism for how this transformation works.
It's like a chain reaction. By fully contemplating and really getting a negative quality, like seeing conditioned existence as payato, or danger, you develop that receptive patience we talked about. This deep understanding then lets you see its true opposite. You see nibbana, liberation, as abhayam, as true safety, as freedom from fear. It's precisely by seeing the problem with absolute clarity that the solution becomes undeniable. And that very realization is what places your feet on the right path.
So let's zoom out for a second and bring this all home. What are the big, crucial takeaways from this ancient discourse that we can actually use today?
First off, insight, vipassana, isn't just a belief. It's a skill you have to cultivate, an active choice in how you see things. Trying to progress while clinging to illusions of permanence, pleasure, or a solid self? Impossible. It's a dead end. The path only opens up when we have the courage to see reality as it actually is, constantly changing, fundamentally unsatisfactory, and selfless. And maybe most importantly, by bravely looking at the negative side of things, we can finally appreciate what true positive, what real freedom looks like. The bottom line is this: your perspective isn't just passively watching the world go by. It's the active force that carves out the very path you walk on.
So, the final question this text leaves us with is a deeply personal one. It puts all the power and all the responsibility right back in our own hands. If your perspective is the path, then what will you choose to see right now, in this moment? Because as this text makes so brilliantly clear, that choice is everything.